I don't know why.
That radio riot
Yeah.
voice from the 30s.
Yeah, I was like playing
Nice.
that for a minute, yeah. I don't know why. Sometimes it's little things. Now this, I don't understand why we get this, but I went back and checked and it still functions.
It's because the video is private, the video of it.
But see, now we're streaming live on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
And I went and looked one time after that was done and we were there and you could see. So I don't understand.
So are we live now?
Yes.
Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this January 3rd, rescheduled in a week or so delay, meeting of the Community Engagement Task Force of the Human Rights Commission. Which is the most roundabout way I've gone about saying it. But Happy New Year. Thank you all for being here. Let's do some quick introductions. And Kathy, why don't you get us started?
Kathy Ostrand-Ponchen, a member of the Human Rights Commission, as well as the Community Engagement Task Force.
David Reinhold, member of the Human Rights Commission, and as well as this task force.
My name is Gretchen Bennett and I'm staff liaison to the commission in this task force.
Beautiful. Do we have any public comment?
None received.
All right, is there approval for the minutes for, I guess that'd be what, December? Or no?
Your
November.
last met in November.
November, that's right, because we rescheduled the December to this week. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes from the November meeting.
For a second.
I wasn't there. I mean, I could second it, but I wasn't.
I'll second it if David feels comfortable with that. So it's approved, yes. All right, the first thing is, per our conversation, I don't remember, David, if you were there at the full commission meeting last time, stop me if you were, but we are talking about the idea was brought up, go out into the community and to disseminate information about the task force, meet folks where they are, essentially do this kind of, I don't know what you would call it, this, not a PR blitz, that's not too corporate, but you get what I'm saying, where you go out and you make these kind of connections, and I think the idea was that we would maybe find a way to strategy going around doing that and how we would figure that out. And so I'd love to spend, chunk of the time in this meeting thinking about which communities we'd like to reach, if there is a way we'd like to go about breaking up Salem, into neighborhoods or communities or downtown or any which way, and think about where we would, how we do that. We won't find a date because there are not enough people here to prove a date, but if there's like a way that we can go about doing this, as I said, and then maybe pitch it to the full commission at our next meeting. So open to thoughts or ideas.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just because I wasn't there,
Yeah.
is this to build community awareness, or is this to build community awareness and get feedback from the community about things they're experiencing?
A, B, C, D, and E, all the above. I think my understanding of it was that we are trying obviously to get our name out there and to be more central to it, but as in everything we do, I think, getting feedback, learning about what folks are facing, just putting a face to the work that we do, but also getting those stories and getting that information from folks directly is an important thing. And it's not just, you disaffected person, what's your experience? It's also talking to business owners, those people in storefronts and customers, people who are visiting Salem, people who live in Salem, to the extent that we can, trying to target this various demographics to get a sense of what people's opinions and feelings are.
I think if I remember correctly, at least where I was in the conversation, we talked about ways people can report.
Yeah.
And trying to find more ways, and then people may not realize there's a form on the website that they can go to, but then we do have those little business cards with the QR code and posters and things, and taking them out, I think is what it started, is just getting the posters out in the community, so there's something, and talking to people and
I forget who it was now, but that's totally right, Kathy. And someone had brought up, I think that conversation started with, I wish there was a way to get like laminated posters of plastered on the bathroom stall or something like that. So if
Yeah.
someone were in the bathroom, like maybe you would for DVU notices or something like that, or trafficking notices, you could see,
That's right, yeah.
people have these things, the stalls, that's where it kind of started, and we thought, well, how would we go about doing that? We'd have to go out and meet people, and then it turned into a conversation of, let's just go out and engage with the community. And I think, just for the full context, from what I remember, which memory is not very good ever, was that there might be a dedicated Saturday where we, would, you know, some combination of us would do some combination of places. And that might be a way we could go about doing it, but that's far within the conversation went.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked like, I think the example was, you know, downtown during this hour, we would all just kind of go
Right.
different directions or something and then reconvene and then another day, maybe.
Which is one way to do it, but
Yeah.
I'd like to maybe have a more coherent or planned out way of doing it,
Yeah.
than just walking around. So I don't have a lot of walking in me.
One thing, if I may too, to add to your conversation is you've got the QR code. Small business card and the broader poster.
Mhm.
So you'd have something for the bathroom stall and you'd have something to hand to a person. I don't know that you've got anything for receipt of feedback. I wonder
Yeah.
if you'd want some sort of simple questionnaire or method of note taking where you have a question or two if you end up in a conversation with someone that you can receive back information, or whether you'd want to develop something like that. Or if it's as simple as if you have a report or a concern of discrimination, because we do have those paths set up, and then it's just a matter of receiving the reports.
Yeah.
Not sure, but just wanted to offer that. As you think about receipt of feedback.
Yeah. Well, I remember Linnell was in the conversation too, and I think she had said that they have the QR codes on the tables at Safe Sleep United, and so like that would be a place. Like we could hit all the shelters or, you know, distribute them to the shelter staff or whatever, so they can. Post them or display them in their areas would be one place we wanna hit, yeah, I mean, I think visible areas downtown. But there's more places than just downtown.
I mean, I
don't
know how the
know.
natural start, but I really. I'll just come out and say it, I think my vision for this is. That we, in the end, get everywhere,
Mhm.
to the extent possible.
Mhm.
And that we, in the end, don't have it be one time,
Right,
right? That this be maybe even an annual thing where we spend, or a quarterly thing where we spend, you know, 1 week in every quarter going to somewhere else or doing some different thing. And there's so many of us, if we can swing it right, where we can really do a lot, you know, if the appetite and the time is there. And so I see this as a learned behavior, and hopefully I have it that we can get into, where as a commission, we say that this kind of, you know. Talking with our feet and walking around and doing all these things is a value of ours that we'd like to continue on. So that's, I will say that, but I hope that it becomes a practice of ours.
Mhm.
And downtown is a place to start. David, does that make sense in terms of?
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
I guess I understand what we're talking about. I guess I'm over here.
Yeah.
So let's say we're building this awareness, there's QR codes. I'm assuming somebody goes to QR code, they're expecting something. What is that something? So all this information is going someplace. What action steps are being done, what the information that we're getting, what problems that they're presenting, how are we solving them? So I guess my question is the city of Salem, if you get all this information and it sits there and nothing's being done with it, then it really makes the HRC really go downhill real fast.
Right.
But in the community, so that's what my head is right now.
So how would that, so I imagine, I mean, I don't
So
know.
I don't know how the city would work through that.
But on a person-to-person basis, if I'm going to the community and I say, you know, David.
Person to person, I totally understand, but I'm saying these posters and you go to QR code, you go to some website and you're trying to file some kind of complaint or grievance. I guess that would go to you, is that how it would work?
Yeah, so just to play that out, right now, what's on the QR codes feed to the Human Rights Commission website. There is a place on the website to report a complaint or concern. Those come into me and then get reported to you. And then what I do is reach the individual and start hearing about the situation. The basic architecture is hearing about the situation, denouncing any kind of hate or discrimination that they perceive that they've experienced, and then start moving through possible remedies. Like I'm talking with one person right now and we're exploring whether and how to communicate with the person of concern, me, her, or engage Fair Housing Council of Oregon, for example. So we're in this discussion about how to resolve. The reports come monthly to the Human Rights Commission for your awareness, in my report and in Debbie's, you know, depending on where it shows up at. And then once a year, we tally how many has come in, and I know it gets reported up in the budget book that comes out from the city, and we've traditionally updated council periodically over the years. Oh, we received X number of complaints this year, and we can talk a little bit about the types. Hopefully, one of the other things that happens with those complaints is the commission is listening for themes and trends. Like I know a few years ago, a classic example is a few years ago, we started getting some feedback about the closed captioning. People who were deaf or hard of hearing were reporting in that, you know, it's hard, you go into a bar or restaurant, no one knows how to turn on the captioning. That's not fair. What if there was an emergency? That led to a change in the law, which requires at least one TV to have closed captioning on at all times. So you hope that the preponderance and themes that you're listening to month after month lead to policy ideas or changes.
Okay,
But they won't always. I mean, as you
Right.
know, you'll hear some things and there won't be actionable things, but there may be sometimes. So I guess that's the basic theme of it.
and then you got the bandwidth to increase more?
Well, that's a fair question.
But I think,
I'm scared every time we do this. Like a few years ago, this task force many years ago got a list of all of the food pantries, and there was like 100.
Wow.
And distributed our stuff, and I was like, okay, but then it was manageable. When we first passed closed captioning, I braced, and it was manageable. So it's a fair question. But I say go for it and communicate with the community, and we'll discover it as we go.
but to David's question,
It scares me though, I will admit.
the basic answer to David's question is, you know, we liaise, we build relationships, we put them out there, we get their feedback. And their benefit is, if you want to frame it that way, is you have this resource in your hands, whether it's as a business owner, as someone who goes to the bathroom, or someone who walks into a storefront. And that will guarantee to initiate the process that already exists on our end, which is you.
Yeah.
And by extension, us.
Mhm.
That is, what we're offering is accessibility, direct accessibility to that guaranteed process, that if you have a complaint, you will talk to somebody
Mhm.
and that will be addressed. But beyond that, I think the more salient question is, the other part of your question, which is how do we guarantee that we as a commission are listening to larger things that are going on? How do we digest the information that we get? We're gonna get a lot of it.
Mhm.
We're gonna have one person say one thing that maybe is actionable, we're gonna have 5, 8 people say something all along the same lines that's more amorphous and hard to act on. How do we communicate our commitment to acting on that? And I think that's an outstanding question. I don't know if we have an answer for that, other than to say, you know, I Joaquin say that as someone who does this and is on this commission, I promise to act on this, but that's not saying that. But maybe another way of addressing the question is, how do we think about ways that we can ensure that because they're being vulnerable, ostensibly. They're really sharing a lot of themselves with us, you know. How can we extend that we are responsible and trustworthy of information that we can act on? I think is a question that is worth talking about.
Mhm.
And that might look like having public conversations. We've already floated that once this evening in the last meeting. That might look like coming back to storefronts, you know, making note of what is being said and being shared by whom and in what ways, and having come into, we'll come back next quarter, or do you want to come to our meetings, stuff like that. I don't know what that looks like, but I think that is a conversation that we should have.
Mhm.
Dave, if you have ideas, I'd love to hear them too, but.
I don't at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just,
Yeah,
I can see this group being very successful in building awareness, and then what happens?
Exactly.
Right.
yeah.
We could all of a sudden be called the racist because we're not addressing certain things.
Sure.
And that's just because we just don't have the bandwidth to do it.
Yeah.
But that's all I was curious. Yeah.
And that's fair, because how often will what we receive be actionable to change? Or actually fix, you know? Sometimes there's drive-by bias, you know, somebody will experience, they'll be somewhere and they don't know who drove by and shouted the racial slur. We can't find that person and hold them accountable, but we can offer empathy and we can include that in our reports to understand what's happening in the community. But we can't really stop or fix that. We can research how to prevent that kind of thing if we notice a trend.
Mhm.
Yeah, but you're right, there's limits.
I will say, I think you just have to do the ball rolling at some level, because you can't telegraph the work that you're doing to the public. If the public is unaware that you're doing work.
Sure.
So, and part of it is, you know, say we reach generously 500 people. Okay. Half of them will forget about us by dinner time. Some portion of that half is gonna say, hey, that HRC thing, let's check in on that. What are they doing 6 months later? Or we might remember or you know, refer a friend to our services or whatever. And then, so we have to we have to start somewhere and kind of build this following so that people are checking in and we have this cycle of.
Right.
Not that we do that already at some level, it's just a matter of expanding that out. We already have an email list of people who
We do.
receive our, whether it's organizations or individuals. So we have this baseline, but you know, thinking this is an effort to kind of build that out.
Right, well, and for people who don't already pay attention to what the city is doing, you know, they have no reason to be aware of the fact that we're here and getting, I think, reaching those people. And yeah, I mean, even a handful of those people find some value in the information, or if they have a reason to contact Gretchen and start that, I think it's.
And I think the hard thing often is, counterintuitive as it may be, people who are marginalized through whatever means, despite having the highest stake in the outcome of policy, are often folks who are the least engaged. And there are reasons for that. And so I think part of our responsibility is to reach and target these specific communities, right? So that might look like going to North Salem or going to South,
Yeah.
doing these things.
Yeah.
You know, particularly, even going to Kaiser, which I know is not outside of Salem, but people in Kaiser live and do business in Salem and have life in Salem and would be needing to avail themselves of our resources should the certain circumstances arise. And so even doing target outreach to Kaiser, which is a kind of cultivating would be relevant. But anyways. So are there any ideas around how to do that in a coherent and effective way?
I mean, we could, you know, you could do it geographically, you could do it by like type of, not, I don't say business is not what I mean, but you know,
Yeah.
like example of, you know, shelters, you can do it both ways. Yeah, I mean, are you thinking of like the one, you know, the 1 day chunk of time where we just go out and then,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as I prefaced, I think I'd like to see multiple days over the
Yeah.
course of months and the year, but
yeah,
yes, I mean, effectively, you know, on a Saturday afternoon. For example, one thing I think won't be effective is like a door-to-door campaign.
Mhm.
Like, you know, like when you're running for office and you go, vote for me.
knocking on.
We're not gonna do that. I don't see ourselves going to residential, knocking on the doors.
Yeah.
We're the HRC, you know.
Yeah,
Scan. you know.
but places where people. go.
Neighborhood associations, hospitals, businesses,
Right.
shelters, schools. I've been here how long now, Rich, and I invariably bring up schools at one point or another. I think schools is something that we need to
Mhm.
focus our attention a lot more on,
Mhm.
for example. But these sorts of things.
Yeah.
But then, so there's a lot of candidates, but then how do we narrow it down to make it most
Right.
effective is the question, because we could spend every day doing that every day of the year doing that, and we wouldn't get to
You wouldn't get everywhere.
all of the places we wanted.
I mean, the one idea we got, you know, is just to hit downtown.
Yeah.
Initially, but yeah, I mean, I'm not looking at a map, just, you know, where are there other kind of. There is one.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, I feel like parts of East and North Salem, we probably should get to sooner than later. I mean, you know, I don't, you know, I wanna make sure we hit areas that are not represented on the commission, I guess.
Geographically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and I think of Gonzalez's report or his commentary recently on council. And the report that Chenaguri just sent us from the school board about about violence in North Salem, especially among Latino community there. I think there's areas of urgent concern.
Mhm.
I think the natural impulse, especially given the work and scope that we have to do, is orange shelter, shelters and stuff like that. And that's true, and I think is top priority, but I think there are other things that we can kind of brainstorm, other
Mhm.
lines of marginality that we can, prioritize over others. I think North Salem is one example of that. And targeting Latino youth or Latino communities specifically would be a good idea. Others,
If there's if we can come up with a list of, community type centers or places where people tend to congregate, just whatever they may be.
churches.
Yeah.
Schools.
Yeah. Now, is there some, depending on where, it seems like there'd be some level of pre-conversation, depending on where we're going. If we're going to a store, it's one thing. If we're going into a church or a school, I mean, I think we would need to do some pre-work there to make sure, to let them know that we're coming, or find out when is a good time, or.
And depending on our appetites as a task force and a commission, I mean, you could call the parish at St. Joseph's and say, can I come to mass? Well, not mass, but some event or something, and say, would you let us into your place of worship, your community, so we can talk about these things?
Mhm.
When I worked at Gausa, we did it all the time.
Yeah.
That was a political issue, not that this isn't, but it's different. But we do it all the time, can you give us 10 minutes to do a presentation about Know Your Rights campaigns or the legislation that affects the community? And people overwhelmingly would often let us, people being parishes, nonprofit leaders.
Yeah, yeah.
And so and this is just adding more work onto our workloads, but I think if people have the appetite for it, it would be a great place to start too.
Yeah.
Another example, just to offer another example of that from a nonprofit I worked at many years ago, they would ask to go into spaces, groups, gatherings, and ask to do what they called a wrap just before, and they kept it very high and tight, sort of a 3-minute. They tried to be interesting and attention getting, but include who we are, what we do. And before they spoke, they had passed out these little pieces of paper that said, contact me, I have stuff to share or whatever. And then they would invite people to fill that out and then come around and collect those back. And there'd inevitably be a percentage that were filled out. And then that would lead to people being added to the email list or contacted for concerns or questions or kind of a variation of what you're
I think
describing.
that's smart.
But it took pre-preparation because you needed to get permission to be able to come in and address the group
Sure.
before their whatever started. But that's another pathway.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we looked at, just what places there are out there, and I don't know, we'd have to come up with a list, but I'm sure there's lots of. I mean, like you said, we could spend all year doing it, and I think we wouldn't hit everywhere, so
I will say, I mean,
prioritize.
we're not exactly shooting in the dark because part of the survey responses were identifying places of high.
Right, well, maybe those are
Might be a place
where
to
we start, yeah.
One that's trickier, that's on that list, high on the list, or is hospital and healthcare settings.
Mhm.
That I think is a more involved conversation to have even broach that topic with healthcare providers. What does that look like? Because, one way of doing it would be to go to healthcare providers or offices and say, if someone comes in and needs help or resources, we are an additional resource that you could direct them to. But if the person doing discrimination is the healthcare provider.
Right.
For their office or whatever.
Yeah.
Something adjacent to that, then that might be missing the point a little bit, but.
Yeah.
You see where I'm going with this. I mean, so that is a harder conversation to have,
Mhm.
but. Might be something we do. I think I floated the idea of,
There are a lot of signs too.
there are a lot of sirens.
Yes.
City council, has a representative on the Salem Salem Hospital Board, and that would be one avenue if we wanted. I think it's Virginia Stapleton who's, right? Are they,
Forgive me, I thought it was Mayor Hoy, but I could be wrong. You could be right.
I don't know. I don't remember. It used to be Mayor Bennett.
Mhm.
And then I think it became Virginia when or Council Stapleton when she came, but came later or midterm, whatever it was, so. Or whatever it was, I don't remember. But and she's a friend of this commission, and so that would be maybe someone to approach about that, for example, for the
Mhm.
hospital. Any other preliminary thoughts?
Yeah, it'd be worth looking at, that email, you have a list of organizations, and then if those organizations have gathering places or meetings or things, that would be also maybe a way to approach it. It's a long list,
Yeah.
but
Another natural way is just neighborhood associations, like I said earlier,
the neighborhood association meetings that I have been to, which are limited,
are sparsely attended.
it's a very small group of people.
And dare we
It's
say,
always the same.
unrepresentative of the community at large, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah, but.
I know what you mean.
So I don't know how the others are, but I don't know how, for some, that may not be a very effective way of getting the word out.
It isn't, and a lot of, for whatever reason, better or for worse. A lot of times something's going wrong in your neighborhood or to you personally.
Yeah.
The first contact point you have is with your neighborhood association, for a lot of people, is my understanding, yeah. At least among counselors and people in city government, the impression I get from them is that they view it as like a legitimate bedrock for getting policy changes done and engaging with the community at large. And so it might be beneficial to the extent that these people who are ostensibly main contact points or early contact points with people have information. May not, there might be neighborhood association chairs that have no idea that we exist or that we do any work at all.
Right.
I would imagine there are actually several of them.
No, that's a good point, actually, the one that I have been to, I think that. The people who do attend the meetings also are out in the community talking to people,
Yeah.
so then, like, that's a good point, they can then take the information and share it with. People indirectly, yeah. Yeah. It's a good idea too.
I have a question.
Mhm.
When you become chair of neighborhood association, is there a training or is there like a onboarding on the part of the city? Do they get resources? Do they, if that makes sense? Like, if you become a counselor, I would assume you get a lot of training.
City councilors city councilors receive a orientation
Sure.
that goes over multiple weeks and covers a whole multitude of topics. I get a chance to participate in that, so I'm familiar with that. I'm not familiar with the orientation for a neighborhood association chair, but my colleague Irma would be, and
Okay.
so I could reach out and ask about that. And could maybe we be, go ahead. I
It
think
wasn't
that
say
might-
if there
Yes,
is and
yeah.
we're not in it or
Yeah.
whatever, then maybe making us a focus of that. Or developing some kind of literature for them to have
Yeah.
might be, because there's, again, so many neighbor associations, I mean, that alone would take us maybe a few months of going out and doing outreach. If there's a way to do it in a way that we're not. I won't say wasting, but spending resources doing that outreach would be ideal.
A second possibility, I can't certainly speak for the group, but there's a chairs meeting once a quarter.
Oh, perfect.
The chairs of the neighborhood associations get together, and I know I've gone there in the past. They have an agenda and you can share information. We could make a request to be on the agenda and share information, and that gathers virtually all the chairs, I think.
That would be
I haven't been in
awesome.
a little bit, yeah.
That'd be awesome,
Mhm.
because that turns 20-something meetings into one meeting,
Yeah,
And we all could, we could reach out with Mike and say, hey, but it would just be better if we could do a catch-all.
I'll reach out to Irma based on that and see,
Yeah, that'd be
okay, great. Irma's the liaison to the neighborhood associations.
So should we create like a PowerPoint presentation? Is that what you're thinking?
That's one way of doing it. I think that would depend a lot on the form, and obviously the venue. I mean, I'm not gonna be doing a presentation to a business owner, but if we had like.
Probably get you in front of 60 or 70 businesses at one time.
That's just, well, but I mean, like, if we're walking around,
I could put you in front of LP.
actually, I think that's a good idea, we should have something prepared. When appropriate, we should also have, and I feel like I've said this in a recent meeting, so you may have already started something, but. A group of talking points so that
Mhm.
all of us are
Same message?
communicating the same message,
yeah,
yeah.
but that's a smart idea, David.
Yeah,
Or even like, WSBA, West Carolina Business Association, which I kind of go to sometimes, things of that nature, that'd be really smart, really smart.
I can look for the commission in the past did what they, I think they billed them as lunch and learns. It was,
Okay.
Who the commission did?
yeah,
Okay.
it was like, come and hear who we are and what we do, and we'd love to connect with you, and invited community members in. And I believe a PowerPoint was created as a part of that.
Was that Mike that did it? Back like a few years ago?
Definitely a few years ago. I can go back and see if those become starting points. We've gone and spoken to different groups and clubs, and I feel like we've put together different pieces along the way.
Yeah.
So I could find what we have and send it out to you all for review and refreshing, and to see if it gives us a starting point.
I think that's good, even if we never shared it with anybody, if we used it, Kathy's saying, as a reference, so we all have the same voice, saying the same thing out there. Cause I can see different people having different viewpoints of what the commission does internally.
Yeah,
And have different priorities about what we could do in the future too.
Yeah,
yeah,
And I think along those lines, giving everyone, and this is just for the health of the commission too, but particularly for the effectiveness of this project, is ensuring that everyone understands exactly how the commission works. Because we can't, I don't want to be out there, even if it's a slight mistake of
Yeah.
getting people the wrong information.
Right.
We want people, not in terms of, our values and priorities, but like literally like, how does this work? Like, okay, I want everyone to be able to answer that question if someone says, okay, scan this and what happens, have 5 steps.
so some training to get everybody on the same page in terms of at least some basic messages. People
I think
have their own.
I think everyone kind of understands what we do,
Yeah,
but I hate this, I hate to say it, but I think it's true where we don't always
Yeah.
really understand exactly what happens.
or I think training how to talk, like not absolutes. Like,
yeah.
Right.
give us this information, we will take care of it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I promise.
That scared me.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, we'll hold them accountable. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, see, it's not like that.
Right.
Yeah.
good point. That's a great tip, not speaking in absolutes. I mean, that's a really good point about this work.
But while also being
We know who to do.
very direct in our ability to promise to try to help.
Yes,
Yeah.
and in denouncing, I mean, you're categorically against hate and bias. That's a strong,
That's a pretty easy thing to do.
Yeah,
so,
but
but, yeah.
but you can do that, yeah.
We say it is, and it should be, but there are people. out there-
I'll say this, it's an easy thing to say, much harder thing to be or to do. I can say, oh, it's horrible, right?
Right,
But if I not follow the action or anything,
Yeah.
that becomes where it gets harder. Okay, that's good. So
we have some pre-steps, it sounds like,
Now let me
before we want to turn the team loose.
let me take stock of what we just said. So
Yeah.
we'd like to get a presentation for a lot of reasons, to centralize content, but also to start thinking about how we are all gonna get on the same page in terms of messaging and communicating those, whatever values we end up communicating, whatever capacity in the community, and then make sure it's the same thing as content wise. We probably should find ways to address the places of highest concern.
Mhm.
So those were healthcare settings, those were oftentimes public places. Which to me, like I think one of them was like parks and streets and stuff like that. That to me doubles as going to storefronts, going downtown,
Mhm.
doing those kind of things to me, because those
Yeah.
are public things. Because businesses was another one, restaurants,
Right,
people
Right.
getting kicked out for whatever reason or whatever, going to those places to me, that's catching, 2 birds with one stone.
Mhm.
Trying to figure out to what extent chairs and neighborhood associations are provided literature or information about us, and if they aren't, or to get more of that, maybe identifying an opportunity to go present and talk to them. That would of course follow once the content is finalized, and that would be a lot of conversation, maybe a few meetings from now to have. Do folks think what do you think is best in terms of, so let's take downtown. Just because it's easiest, I think, to wrap our brains around. Do folks like the idea of being a Saturday and saying, we're gonna take 2.5 hours out of our Saturday to have 4 people take Court Street and 4 people take whatever, is that how we do it, or is there some? I'd like to approach some understanding of how we might take an area,
Mhm.
and downtown seems like a natural starting point. Do folks have opinions
I
on
mean,
that?
that's. I don't have any other vision in my head of how it would work.
So I will say, I'll maybe, so I've never done this exactly, but I have gone to, like, back in my own days and everything, political campaigns, we would do something like this, get the word out things,
Mhm.
and you take a partner, and we go to something like a pulga on Lancaster, or Mexican, and we go and do these things, and the two of us we take turns, each, business person, whomever it was, I'd do one, she'd do the other one, you do the other. And we went about this way in kind of teams, we kind of helped each other get the message out. So that would reduce the number of people who could be at different businesses or storefronts or places at one time, but they would ensure that everyone has a buddy and feels comfortable doing it what they're doing. So for example, how many of us are there? 15, 14?
If you're fully seated, 15, I think right now you're at
We have a new person.
13, yeah, 13 or 14, because you have a new person.
Okay, so say it's 14, that's 7 pairs. So that does limit how the scope that we could do, but we could do,
I think teaming up is important.
we could do one pair has an hour to do this part of court,
Yeah.
or this part of,
Yeah.
That might be one way of doing it. If folks have strong opinions about how that might work or look.
To the extent possible, I would hope to have to like diversify the team somewhat, so.
Yeah.
Because if one person just, I mean, the people who we're talking to might have a stronger connection to one
Resonance.
person over there versus, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but
I think the largest thing for us is we don't have a lot of Spanish speakers,
true. No, I know, that's,
which is kind of a problem,
yeah.
more than kind of.
But no, I like the idea. I mean, just to, definitely team up and take turns and.
You could always call me for translation. But yeah, buddying. Storefronts might be a natural place to start downtown. It feels easier,
Yeah, it does. And then see how it goes, and then that might
a learning opportunity.
give us feedback for how to do it better somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like what didn't work, maybe something's not gonna work that we didn't think about.
But all it really takes on our end is getting everyone to agree, get the content in line. That's not nothing, but there's no calling in advance, there's no real and if we mature this project to the point where we're going to, shelters or other kind of more delicate places, it's more than just content. It's like, how do you communicate to people? How do you reach people? It's like, it's more than that. But for a lot of these kind of storefronts or downtown places, I don't know if we need that level of sensitivity or gravitas, but so it would be a natural place to start, is what I'm trying to say.
And we would want some way, if we did receive feedback, we'd want some way, as you were saying, to record that and bring
Yes.
it back to the full group, so
To
that
David's earlier point.
somebody's not just, it doesn't say something and then, oh, that's, that's too bad or whatever, and then it's forgotten about. I mean, I would wanna make sure that we bring that information back.
I wonder, because we're giving scans out, and a part of that is, or whatever it is, barcodes, I don't know how to use them actually. That'd be one thing for me to learn. is
Oh,
how to use a
QR
barcode.
codes, yeah.
I have no idea how to use them, but I always put my phone on them.
Yeah,
It never does anything.
oh,
I'm just
might
bad.
be your phone.
I have a nice one.
Oh, very good.
I have,
My friendly
I have one of these.
very old phone.
Didn't it used to be that you had to have a QR code reader?
She didn't have
And now
whatever we
it's-
needed. I was
yeah.
like, oh,
well, I have like a camera. I can.
okay.
I'm someone who's
I'll go
I'm
get it.
someone who's got a little laptop and I burn it somehow. It just erupts into flames. I don't know how to use it. But, what are they trying to say? I don't remember. So since we're giving out QR codes to people, that brings them to you essentially. Maybe this is an opportunity. We had an earlier conversation at the last commission meeting about rethinking or revamping the website.
Yeah,
The website is a digital accessible platform that would allow us to communicate things we're hearing,
Mhm.
what we're doing. I know we do that at some level, Gretchen, like, how to get involved or, things that we're doing, but maybe, have this is a lot of programming. But let me dream here, like a dashboard.
Mhm.
Or it could be even like this project itself, we at HRC are doing this thing and look, we've reached 80 storefronts in 2 days and
Yeah.
we're doing this and
Sure.
here are the things we're hearing.
Mhm.
Here's where, to really have this be a very alive and active and engaging website that people could look at and say, oh my gosh, they've been in North Salem in these neighborhoods, they've been to these storefronts, they're coming to my community. They're hearing the things that I'm invested in. So other people are commenting about gang violence in North Salem or shelter, people, to have it be
Yeah.
alive and more interactive. That's a lot of work on city staff. But that might be one way to be, and that's not just for the length of this project, but always be doing those things. Like I can imagine a world in which after every report that you or Debbie give, we say, here's what we heard this month.
Yeah, and it's
Mhm.
updated.
And then it's updated every month,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
people.
No, I
see
think
that.
that's a good idea, because we're letting people know what that we're hearing them.
Yeah,
We may, the specific issue we may not be able to fix, or maybe it's, it's something that Gretchen has to refer on to another agency, but at least yes, we did hear you.
and it also solidarizes, if I can invent a verb here, reporting. Because if I'm calling and I say, oh, I never called before, I don't know what it looks like to call the city and report my problem or my whatever. And then I go online to do that and I go, oh my gosh. There's a whole ton of people out there who are saying things that relate to this. Maybe it's not what I'm experiencing, but it gives me hope, or at least, because I would imagine there are a lot of people at Kathy who pick up the phone to call Gretchen and don't.
Mhm.
Or think to, or don't know if that's really, if what they're
Yeah.
saying rises to that, whatever it is. And so being able to have just some kind of contouring
Yeah.
to the landscape of things that people are reporting and a conversation about around our city, I think would be really nice to see, both in terms of communicating with community partners, as people who may otherwise not reach out to us, even if they need it, for us to be communicative about what we're doing and hearing and thinking about and digesting on a week to week, month to month basis. I think that's a good idea.
Mhm.
And populating that website could start with this project.
It could.
Anyways, that's an idea.
It relates to your other objective about trying to reduce barriers to reporting, because maybe that's a barrier is people fear it's a black hole. I call, but then to what end? And to see, oh, this is something that's tracked and.
And even if online it says, we promise to listen to your call and get back to you,
Mhm,
which I think we do,
mhm.
she does.
Yeah,
I don't know if I know that, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah.
especially if I come from a community who
Yeah.
historically we kind of got beef with the government.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Right.
if words alone will assuage my worries I have.
I don't think it would.
So seeing that other people are having success, even if it's not my success with my problems, reporting to the government, in this case you, would, I think, go along. Potentially,
Making sense.
Mhm.
it happens so rarely.
Would a business card with a QR code for first responders to hand out? Would that make sense?
Good question for Lieutenant Aguilar.
That is good.
I don't mean,
We have
I
them.
don't just mean police, I mean fire,
Yeah.
I mean ambulance.
Yeah, we have them. I could certainly offer them.
I just don't know if
Yeah,
the person had a complaint, if that person there could take care of it, or should it come to us? I'm just trying to figure out,
right.
does it need to stay with the first responder? Or that's what I don't know.
I think it depends on the nature of the complaint.
Yeah.
There's times when first responders refer things into us. But like if they're talking to a first responder about a complaint with that specific interaction or agency, they have a pathway for escalating that concern and addressing it, and that's acceptable as long as the person is served.
We'll get what the guards are telling, I'm sure there's stuff the police get involved with that they can't do anything about,
Oh, all the time, yeah.
which would come to you then.
Yeah, well, and that's the incidents category, really. When you hear her report crimes and incidents, the incidents are the ones that they really don't have a actionable step forward, but they're hearing it and documenting it and reporting about it. Yeah,
So to David's question, when David reports or when Lieutenant Aguilar reports incidences.
Mhm.
Does she give our information out to those incidences? I know it's not her always handling the cases, but
I think it's often not her, because
Sure.
they're coming into the whole department and then
sure,
getting reported to her.
my question stands, like,
Yeah,
if it's an incident.
yeah,
It doesn't rise to a crime,
yeah,
but someone's been slighted for reasons that we would be interested in,
right,
interested in helping.
yeah.
Are they given our information or are they just not?
Great question. Oh, my understanding is to some degree they are. It depends on the officer, the context, the knowledge of the person receiving the report and whether they share that. Over the years, I know we've done information kind of in service communication about this is a resource that you can give out. And so I've seen it happen, but I don't know how universally it happens.
Well, that might be a thing for David to do on the police board. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
If
Is
it's
HRC
interesting.
even, as officers, is that part of the rotation to learn what HRC is?
Yeah, at least it used to be. I haven't checked on that in a long time.
Because I wrote officers that don't know CPRB is.
I know. Varies, right? And how much is coming at them and how much is retained and recalled and, yeah.
But it really is best, it would be best practice for them.
Yeah, yeah. Good thoughts here.
Cause I think it'd be helpful for an officer just not to be able to walk away and the person think nothing got done, at least you give them a
Right.
card and say, okay, this is another
Right.
resource you
Yeah.
can go to within the city.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
And I think a lot of people, if they have some kind of bias situation going on, maybe they're gonna call the police. I would assume a lot, the mentality of a lot of people are gonna be that way.
Yeah.
And that's the only place they would think to call. I would think,
If they feel comfortable doing that.
correct, if they're
Uh,
not comfortable doing that.
And, but how many of those, to your point, David, when they're not deemed crimes, continue action? Probably not any. And what role does the police have in helping them have further resources? I would say all of the role. I mean, really, I mean, I think it's incumbent on them to do that.
I think other categories of where people report is through the structure where the place, where the bias occurred, if there is
Yeah.
such a thing.
Mhm.
Or now the Department of Justice's bias hotline, that's, I think, another big opportunity for people to.
So I have to ask,
I don't have it yet.
what are the reports?
I know.
Actually, I have to. I also, as generally what the conversation is, we do have maybe other things to consider. We only have less than a half an hour, so let me just review exactly what I said yes to on this agenda before I do anything. Okay, I don't want to stop the conversation for those things, but I would like to reserve at least a few minutes being to talk about the liaison program and other things, but.
One thing that I do, if we're gonna go out, if we're gonna hand out the QR codes and go out and spread the word, would it be beneficial as a commission if we sat down together and looked at the website so that we know what we're directing? I don't know how many
Yeah,
of us are
absolutely.
familiar with it.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, I went and looked at the forum because I didn't even realize I had forgotten it was there.
Yeah.
And I found it pretty easily, but I wonder if we should, just so that we're all familiar with it. So when someone says, well, what am I gonna get when I scan this code? Then we're all in a
Yeah.
position to be able to tell them. And make sure it's updated.
And I think the purposes of this conversation, though I think I know you know this, is just to not have all this groundwork be laid during general commission meeting time. But
Mhm.
obviously, everything we do will be
Mhm.
together, and I think that conversation in particular around what would a dashboard even look like, if that's what we want, what does the website revamp look like, would be a great conversation or conversation that we would invite other commissioners to come to this task force and talk about too,
Mhm.
depending on whatever their appetites are. I would
Yeah.
imagine whatever conversation we have generally would roll into another conversation here, just because this is the way things go. But
That would also help me with clarity on what to change. After the last meeting, I went and looked for how do you make that report form more prominent?
Mhm.
And came away not sure exactly what to suggest, and so I was
Yeah.
thinking I should follow up with you all and see what would you advise and before I ask, for help with that. So it would help us get
Yeah.
our heads around what changes to make too.
Yeah. Well, when I looked at it, the first place where I thought to look, initially I didn't find it there, but then later in the same session, I realized it was there. I don't know if I just wasn't reading thoroughly or what, but
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, that's good
So
feedback
that'd be
to
good
have,
to-
Yeah.
To at least review that, yeah.
yeah.
Any other thoughts? Big dream or vision about community outreach.
Anything we can do to get out there, I think is good.
Just a lot.
Mhm.
In your experience, Gretchen, historically, well, first, I guess the question is, anything like this been attempted? And if so, was it successful?
I recall a targeted outreach to entities that were food pantry sites. We got the list from Marion Pole Food Share, and then commissioners took out materials to those sites and talked with the people and asked that they be placed there and shared as people are coming. And then just over the years, there's been different reaches to different groups and presentations done. You know, let's go to this entity or that group and share about who we are, what we do, how we can connect. But I don't know that it's been done in any sort of sustained way or super organized way. It's been a little bit responsive to, oh, we're kind of hearing about this topic, let's go to that group kind of a thing.
And what about those efforts have or haven't been successful?
Yeah, I was just thinking about, I didn't answer that question. I don't know that I know. I feel like early on, the commission recognized we don't really have a data point to be able to know how successful we are. And then the belonging survey started. The group wanted an annual survey to recognize how many people in this community are aware of the commission and how did you hear about us? And so those have been standard questions now for the 5 years. And that was one thing is the group wanted to track over time, does that change?
Yeah.
Cause I'm not sure we know. I mean, usually when we go to a group, there's some good conversations. There may or may not be a report of discrimination that comes out of it.
Mhm.
And some people who sign up to be on the email list. So those are indicators of engagement.
Definitely. I think the big concern with this is just fatigue.
Yeah,
You know, we all, I believe we all want what's best for.
Yeah.
Not just the commission, but the people that for Salem.
yeah,
And literally people out here on multiple weekends over the course of the year is gonna be a logistical challenge.
mhm,
And of course, there'll be variance, you might get 14, which is unlikely, or you might get 7 or 8 or 10, which is more likely, or even 1.
yeah,
And so just in terms of who actually shows up and what their availability is always gonna be an outstanding question, but I think for it to actually really work, not that not doing it, every quarter isn't, a reason. Not that its potential longevity being uncertain isn't a reason to do it or to start it. But the question always is, can we maintain?
yeah, sure.
And,
Sure.
And I think that for the way for it to be successful, of course, long-term is that it is maintained.
Yeah.
And successful.
Mhm.
Because the whole point is consistent, that is to say, regular and meaningful outreach to not just downtown once, but downtown once this year and once next year when we cycle through and do it again. And
Mhm.
even if the conversations become shorter and whatever, because they already know us, that's fine. They already know us, That's only a good thing. It's just a reminder of, hey, we were here a year ago, last January. Remember us? We're still doing our or whatever. But that long-term engagement, which in turn begets investment on the part of the community,
Yeah,
is predicated on the long-term nature of it. And so we have to find ways to make that possible.
Which is hard to do when you have commissioners coming and going and.
Hard to do,
Other
and people, and
priorities,
we're
yeah.
all professional people, we all work, we all do things, we all have lives, and that's hard to do, we're volunteers. But to the extent possible, I think one of the charges of this group is to, if possible, identify a way where long-term things are
Mhm.
sustainable. Whether that's twice a year, once a quarter, or whatever.
Yeah.
And that will, of course, but then, you know, a lot of our colleagues express appetite for the column, but didn't know where to begin on how to do it. I think this is a little bit more achievable than the column in some ways, but
Yeah,
people say they want to do things, but then can't do it or don't show up for, it, which is fine. But that'll be kind of the perennial challenge.
Your next agenda topic might even be a compare and contrast to that too. If folks have limited energy, would you rather have them on a Saturday QR code engagement or liaisoning with a particular group?
Right,
know,
because this whole liaison program. is
right,
Also. a thing.
So that there's really a couple of options now on the table for
But
the engagement.
I view them as essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, they're part
There
and
you
parcel of one another.
Just different styles.
But
maybe?
there's actually the liaison program, if I remember correctly, now that I'm thinking about it, included neighborhood associations.
It did.
For example.
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
And so that would be very much a part of that.
yeah,
It would include nonprofits, it would include.
yeah, I think there's a lot of
things like
overlap
that.
there.
So there's a lot of
There is.
overlap with that.
yeah,
The only difference is, liaison program in theory is, you know, I'm David and I want to do liaison with that group, or I'm
Mhm.
Kathy and I'm really interested in this group.
Yeah.
And then it becomes your responsibility.
yeah. And then maybe a more
Change that.
sustained presence there.
And that's fine, I think both can be true.
Mhm. Yep.
But I see them as pretty much the same,
Yeah.
it's very similar. project.
Mhm.
And both would require a lot of preliminary work on our end.
Yeah.
In terms of content and messaging
Mhm.
and outreach. And stuff.
Yeah, with the liaison program, there's a specific audience on the other side, whereas with what we're talking about, there may or may not be. I mean, if you're gonna go to just different storefronts.
Yeah.
You're not specifically having a continuing relationship with that particular business as much as just businesses in general. I don't know.
Because the employee of the day that you
Right.
arrive may not be the employee that,
Sure.
yeah, ultimately decides if the posters can go in the bathroom stalls, for example.
Yeah.
They might
We-
take and
Maybe,
receive the
maybe
request.
for a lot of
Yeah,
businesses.
Yeah,
Mhm.
hey, will you ask your manager if
Who
these
knows
can be
if
put
they'll
up?
happen.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
There's gonna be a lot of that.
Mhm.
There's a lot of hit and misses. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So. Any other ideas or comments or things? We got a lot
Not that,
talked
it
about.
meant a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I think we've got a long list of things to be working on the next couple, over the next few meetings. But, yeah.
So maybe the last item was redundant, which is. We were gonna talk about
Yeah.
next things to do
No,
in the coming months.
I think we've got, I feel like we've got it.
Do we have things to do? Any other, do people want to talk about the liaison program in an organized way? Different from the.
Well,
kind
where
of-
did we leave off with that? I know we're talking about it. Were we
So we
making
left off,
specific assignments or have we not gotten that far yet?
now Gretchen, I may have to rely on you here. We left off, we had a list of partners
Mhm.
that you had generously provided and updated and provided.
Mhm.
And I think if I remember correctly, a few weeks ago now, before the holidays, you had asked Gretchen if I approved the list, something like that, and I said, yeah, or something like that. And I think we were getting to the point where we would send out the people to volunteer for it, is that right, or clarify that for me?
I thought everybody wanted to review the talking points first. So if I understand correctly, it went down the path of, will people feel ready to sign up for a group? Or does it need to come out in a package with information about how and what to do or say? And so then I think I sent out the draft talking points that we
I
have
remember that.
compared to the liaison program. And so it might be about just thinking about how you want to package it.
Mhm.
So if it hits the commission member who's not at this table,
Right.
would they see the ask and see the tool and the resource for knowing what to do?
Yeah.
And so if you like, I can resend those talking points and the list, and you can look at it and see, okay, yeah, this will make sense. And then maybe with your update at the full commission meeting to say, hey, this is ready and we're hoping you'll sign up. Here's the sample talking points, here's the list of groups. Ask us if you have questions.
Yeah.
We're here to help. Maybe that's adequate.
Not to add to your
No, go ahead.
endless thing of I'll always
Yeah,
agree with you, but I wonder if in advance of the general commission meeting, which I think is next,
I thought, I was looking at the calendar,
It's
that's
soon.
last
Week from
year's
today.
calendar, but
Yeah,
yeah.
week from today.
providing talking point,
I've got it.
maybe a brief summary of what we've talked about here.
Mhm.
And say, you know, the task force, this task force would
Yeah.
like to talk about messaging and what we've talked about doing all the systematic outreach, and that includes the liaison program. And you know, think about kind of the questions that you have around process and work and messaging and stuff like that. Just so people folks are prepared to have that conversation in some way or another, just so it's on the radar, so we're not
Yeah.
going in
Yeah,
green. Would be helpful. I
Okay.
think, if
Copy
you-
that.
if you don't mind.
Yep.
Any other thoughts about that?
No, I had forgotten about the talking points. I remember seeing them. I'll have to go back and,
I had forgotten
Okay.
too, that's what we'd like to. And I think it's good that that's next week.
Yeah.
Are we meeting again in January for this?
This group right now is scheduled to meet again January 24th.
Okay. Fine for the best.
Because this is the December pullover, but as you wish.
I wish.
Yeah.
Anything else? This is something else.
not that I can think of.
I don't wanna, I think we've had a healthy conversation. I don't wanna get too sprawl out in our conversations. I wanna be able to retain things and think about them and digest them.
My notes when the Salem piece up. So, not to change the subject, but the Salem speaks up, I feel like there's potential there to have kind of more community listening sessions.
Did you go?
Mhm.
How was it? I covered it briefly last time, but
I mean, it was limited. The people who showed up were the ones who wanted to speak. I think almost everybody spoke because that was what they came to do.
Sure.
But so it was kind of like I mean, this is not the, like preaching to the choir kind of thing is what comes to mind. That's not really what it was, but somebody even said, this is great, but we need to get more people here to listen, you know, because you know, it was a fairly limited group, but it was good. I mean, I think it was really good. I think a couple of the people said that they had just heard about it, like kind of word of mouth. So I think if we can do better at getting, or whichever group, you know, the word out there,
maybe a speak and be heard session as opposed to just a speaking.
and my own personal input, which is where it was, and I'm glad that Lisa was able to get the room at the Y, but it was kind of hard to get to, you know,
Oh, right.
it was. And so I feel like some people may have been intimidated by just like, I don't even want to go in the building, let alone try and navigate my way to find where the room is. So somewhere closer to like the sidewalk that people can actually get in and out of work. Because it was, I don't know, I think was the Y even open at the time? I feel like we
Well,
had.
if memory serves, they'd wanted another space that was more accessible, but there was another event going on. I wasn't part of the planning, but I remember
Yeah.
Lisa saying that. Plus the Y is new and I don't think anyone's really familiar with the new Y.
Yeah.
I'm not. I used to go there all the time.
But I feel like it was good. The people who did speak had
Yeah.
something to say. I mean,
That's good.
yeah, I don't know if you had a different take on it.
I'm trying to recall the debrief from
Oh.
that committee debriefed, and I'm
Oh, okay.
trying to recall the themes in that debrief. There was another meeting but it was up on the third floor, so, but
Oh, I
that was
see.
their larger room.
Okay, that's what.
So the point about being straight off the sidewalk is a good point. I'm not sure if the facility has a straight off the sidewalk room, but they may. They may,
I
we
think
did
there is
get a nice
something on the corner
tour.
there. I don't know.
Yeah, so that's a good point. That's a good.
You know, just if
question.
someone isn't comfortable walking
Yeah.
among the
way
weight
through.
machines and, you
Yeah.
know, through all the staff.
Cause you had to go to the second floor and then through the wait space and,
Yeah.
yeah, to get to the space. That's true. Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like there's opportunities there to have more, some sort of quarterly listening session or something, where just come talk to us, what do you have to say, and
Yeah.
maybe, maybe it's something we can do something about, maybe it's not, but just giving people a
Yeah.
chance to come and share their experiences or their thoughts.
That's a good point.
I think that'd be more or less easy enough to do. It's just a matter of getting people to come, getting the word out on that.
Yeah.
That will always be a challenge. I mean, even if 40 people come, that's fine, but you want 40, you know.
Right. Well, and making sure the right people are in the room too. I mean, Mayor Hoy was there, and I think it wasn't the city manager, it was
We had the
is there a
deputy city manager
Yeah, yeah.
and Mayor Hoy, and then a deputy chief of police
that's right.
as 3 people who arrived to listen.
Mhm.
Member of the school board.
Are you talking about replicating Salem Speaks Up again or for the HRC?
I'm thinking for the HRC.
Oh, that's what I
Yeah,
thought, yeah.
yeah, I mean, just seeing how that event went. I wasn't sure going into it because I had never been to one before, what it was gonna be like, and I was like, oh, this is actually kind of, it felt like, I mean, I imagine if more people come to share, we might hear. I feel like it was, well, and maybe I'm wrong, but it was all people who it was part of their work, their daily work, and sharing what they
Yeah.
learned and what they know and what they want to see, and it
It was
was,
valuable in its
Yeah.
own way,
yeah.
but yeah, you won't.
But historically, the push from the planning committee is what I've seen is the committee has historically wished for individuals to come and share their individual experiences.
And how do we get those people? that-
Yeah, and often what you have is groups who come and kind of summarize what they're hearing or talk about what they're seeing. And,
Yeah.
Who of the school board was there, do you remember?
Well, I'm not
Sat.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure how to say his name. The person who then subsequently submitted
Oh, yeah.
comment to us. Yeah.
Oh, did
Yeah,
Okay. Oh, okay.
so we have a public comment for next week's
Okay.
commission meeting in the email packet
So
as a follow-up.
his first, and I say this as he told me, his first encounter with HRC was at our tabling event
Oh,
at the 55th anniversary of the thing.
oh, very good.
He came and
Okay, downstairs.
he and I spoke
Good.
briefly, and I gave him our entire information. He had never heard of us before, and that was what, 2 years ago, so.
Yeah, good.
And so I'm glad that he's retained that. Just he and I had not spoken since, so.
That's great
He's
though.
he's had that in his mind. So, there you go.
Good.
Oh, we do have friends on the school board. Because Karina's on the school board and Maria's on the school board and people that I know and work with and friends with, so it might be something to reach out to. I mean, I grew up with Gary, so.
Oh.
See her and have that be a thing. Not apropos of anything, I have a few questions about first historic landmarks collaboration vis-a-vis the new, what is the cemetery
Mm-hmm,
work.
mm-hmm.
And then you were so generously reminded me of, like, I don't know where we are with the Latino event that's coming up in February.
Mm-hmm.
Any updates about either or?
The Queen Ming Festival, I have not heard anything about yet. I don't know if they've started the
I
planning.
replied to them.
Great, it's typically in the spring, and so I don't know if they've started yet. Yeah, that's what I wanna say too. So we can follow up and see. I haven't heard about anything getting started. The Spanish Resource Fair is next month.
Yes.
I just updated our Google spreadsheet today, in fact, because we have a place to sign up for events, and I put your name down for our conversation. I did. I wanna say,
Someone reached out from the city.
yeah, I
to
think
me
she did.
about that.
Yeah,
Could you
yeah.
tell me more about the event?
Sure, it's the second annual. It's intended to be a resource fair, as much as possible in Spanish for people for whom Spanish is their preferred language. And so last year, for example, it was a whole bunch of tables. I want to say 30 tables. And a lot of city departments represented, but then also groups that do services for people were there as well. Like I remember coming for Human Rights Commission and being next to the fire department, for example, and he spoke Spanish, so that helped me. And it was just mingling with people who were walking through the tables and people were getting information about the services. I was impressed with how well it was attended. It was the first one, and I would describe it as a much more active tabling experience than I have at other events. Yeah, so it's gonna be the second one this year.
And you put me down for that.
I did,
So in addition to that, I'll also respond to, I forget her name now, I'm sorry
Great.
to say,
that's okay.
but I will let her.
Great, thank you. Yeah, yeah.
Alright, is that all, the only other two things that you have going on? Or was there a third thread about, was there something about city's involvement with Willamette archaeological site for the, on their campus about the Indian labor school that was on their campus? There's a conversation we had with Lisa,
There was, I can't remember if there was a next on that, but we can.
that was also on my mind too.
Mhm.
Those are community engagement
Yeah,
things.
absolutely, absolutely.
Any member remarks or questions or concerns?
No.
Well, oh, so you're going.
No, I just say, I saw that a couple of emails came out from Gretchen today. I've not had a chance to look at them. I'm assuming it's about the meeting. Next
Yeah,
week, send the materials.
Meeting next week, I sent them, yep, I did. And then I sent the year in review today too,
Oh, okay.
because we got the webpage updated to reflect the belonging survey, so I thought I was able to get that out.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome, yeah.
And thank you both for your engagement. And we'll have hopefully a productive conversation at the meeting next week too.
Very good.
And Happy New Year to those at home. Who I've got my back to the whole time.
No,